Hello everyone and welcome back to Very Cold Lasagna, your filthy casual place for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I'm DylanLasagna and we are here, not for weekly picks, not yet, but for a traditional podcast episode number 118 of this icy yet spicy podcast that we usually give our regular casual takes on. Yeah, it's been a while since I did a podcast here on Very Cold Lasagna, and yeah, it's gonna be a little rusty, so bear with me here on this episode. But here we're here to talk about my San Francisco 49ers as I give a mid-season update, mid-season review on them. So here we are at the midway point for them. They are currently 4-4, and it's things could have been much worse, but also could have been better if not for one unfortunate injury. But it also could have been, a lot different per se. But we'll get into that in this episode. Just before we get into it, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping as we get into things. Of course, you can always check out Very Cold Lasagna wherever you get your podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts. We're also available on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. We're currently growing up in numbers and in viewership, so that I like to keep that consistency very much alive. So thank you very much to whoever's watching on the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it very much as we continue to grow on YouTube. And speaking of the YouTube channel, I want to know your thoughts and opinions on how my coverage of the weekly coverage of the 2022 NFL season has been going for all of you that have been watching it. Do you like or dislike the format of how it's been with like the simple rundowns of how I'm doing the picks, or like the recaps with like the winners and losers and the hurry up game towards the end? Let me know your thoughts on how my format has been with the weekly general coverage of this season so far. And as for like keeping it YouTube exclusive, I know it's been kind of a weird decision for me to keep it YouTube exclusive. Let me know your thoughts on that as well. I know on the audio side of things, I've been kind of ignoring you all, but I wanted to grow the YouTube channel a little bit more this current 2022 season. Hopefully during the playoff time, during the playoffs, we'll go back to multi-platform. The only reason I've done it, kept it YouTube exclusive, was because things in my life have been like really hectic, especially now. I've gotten another job, so and along with juggling my other current job on the front half of the week. So, ooh, man, I'm a busy man. I've all of a sudden become a busy man. But no, there's no excuses. I do apologize for the audio only people, the audio podcast people. Hopefully, when we get to the playoffs in January, we'll return to multi-platform, so you guys can get that end of the spectrum too. But you're getting an audio only platform for those of you listening to wherever you're getting it. So that was your housekeeping for you. Again, let me know your thoughts on the coverage for the 2022 season so far and my San Francisco 49ers as well. And don't forget to rate, review, and leave a comment wherever you get your podcast for Very Cold Lasagna. So thank you for the support as always, and keep that lasagna in the fridge. So let's talk about my San Francisco 49ers and their Week 8 matchup against the LA Rams. I already reviewed it. I already recapped it this past week. So I'll give you a mini version of it for those of you that didn't check it out on YouTube, and especially for those of you on the audio side of things. So the 49ers beat the LA Rams 31-14. They were 3-4 going into it. They were coming off two very bad blowout losses to the Atlanta Falcons and the Kansas City Chiefs, especially to the Chiefs at home. They were fighting against the Chiefs, but of course, you know how Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense is. And the Niners were still less than 100% healthy, but still no excuses. Their offense couldn't keep up, especially Kyle Shanahan. Didn't have a good game plan, and pretty much the whole team was pretty unprepared in that game. But they were more prepared in this game. They were more healthy for the most part, and especially considering that the Rams were coming off a bye week. Yeah, the Niners absolutely dominated them, especially in the second half, and especially Christian McCaffrey. He had a really good performance. And it's only his second game as a 49er. He had a triple crown, or as you like to call it in the basketball terms, triple double, with a rushing, receiving, and a passing touchdown in one game. Literally, he made an impact in this game alone as a 49er, and this was with Deebo Samuel out. So he really stepped up to the plate, and you got to give credit to Jimmy Garoppolo. And most of the time, I've called him Jimmy Garbage Fail for plenty of reason. But in this game against the LA Rams on the road in Levi South, he really had a good performance in the second half against a flawed Rams team. Now, can they keep that up after the bye week in Week 10 against the Chargers? Hopefully, we'll see. Let's see if they can sustain this kind of offense in the second half of the season. So this was a good win for them in Week 8. You got to give credit to Kyle Shanahan for finally putting together a really good game plan. Now let's see if they can sustain it. So obviously, like I said, they're currently on bye right now. They're 4-4 in this 2022 season. And honestly, as we subvert to the mid-season review, they could have been either a lot better or a lot worse. But then, when I first talked about this team back in July, this whole season really could have been a lot different. It really could have, because, this whole season for the 49ers was all about the development of, the second-year quarterback, Trey Lance. Yeah, all of a sudden, people suddenly just forgot about Trey Lance as of this point, because this season, again, was supposed to be about Trey Lance's development, because he's only played 2 games last year filling in for Jimmy G. And yeah, people say, oh, he's inexperienced. He's only played 1 full year in North Dakota State. Well, that's the point of getting a full year's worth of starting experience this year. So anyway, going back to my season preview back in July, there was a lot of optimism going to this season in spite of losing the NFC title game back in January to the Rams. So the Niners were poised to succeed the next season. However, I was more realistic, more cautiously realistic with the Niners' expectations back in July, because while yes, I do believe that they could have gone 9 to 10 wins, and especially with a very strong defense that got even better in the offseason, and that honestly could have carried the team in a weak NFC, especially considering now, there were still some concerns. We don't know how Trey Lance's strong offseason work was going to translate to training camp, let alone preseason. And, Jimmy G was still on the team by that point. He didn't get traded. He didn't get released. And worst of all, he got shoulder surgery. And yeah, it's out of the Niners' control, but you could have gotten rid of him. You could have gotten rid of him before the deadline to get rid of him, which was August. But still, there were a lot of really weird things that happened during that offseason. Deebo Samuel requested a trade prior to the draft, but good thing that cooler heads prevailed. He got his extension. And then the offensive line suddenly wasn't a priority in the offseason once Alex Mack retired in June. And then, they didn't do a whole lot of investment in the O-line. I mean, I'm just glad that Aaron Banks, their guard, panned out. But the rest of the offensive line, aside from Trent Williams and Aaron Banks, they suck. They have absolutely sucked so far. Jake Brindell has been wildly inconsistent. Mike McGlinchey has been hot ass. And Spencer Burford has been, also very bad. So you saw how flawed the offensive line was dating back to preseason. So they've been bad. Trey Lance looked 50-50 in it. And it was not great. it was not great, especially for Lance. But hey, it's expected when a quarterback hasn't played that much, and hasn't got that much experience. So a lot of this season was supposed to be about how Trey Lance would develop in his first full starting year as a starting quarterback. So then we get to the actual first week of the season. The Niners were going to play in Chicago, and yes, it was going to rain, but still no excuse. No excuse. The Niners had played in these kind of weather conditions before. So the Niners' first game in Chicago comes and goes. Most of the starters look unprepared to play. A lot of penalties, a lot of 49ers football being played, and they're trying to counteract Bears football from the get-go. But the only one that kind of looked prepared to play was Trey Lance. Had a solid early start. He threw a couple decent zip throws to Brandon Ayuk and Ray McLeod. He took a little bit of unneeded sacks. Also threw a bad pick. But he was also given some bad play calls by Kyle Shanahan. Especially, just like last year in Arizona, a lot of QB designed power runs. And that eventually led to his downfall too. And then especially considering the fact that when they eventually started trailing the Bears later in the game, Kyle Shanahan still called power runs for Trey Lance. Come on, man. Don't you want to get back in this game? So anyway, they lose that game. And then they go to the home opener in week 2, which I was there for. And then, Trey Lance looked a little bit better in that game against Seattle. They relied more on the running game against a weaker Seattle team at that point. And they still called power runs for Trey Lance. And when they called another power run, designed run for Trey Lance in the second quarter, he got hurt. And this is what I was concerned about. The more Kyle Shanahan kept calling these power runs for Trey Lance in the second quarter, in not just the second quarter, but overall, he was going to hurt him. It was like he had an agenda against him. So he ended up suffering an ankle injury after he got tackled by 2 linebackers. And this is what I was worried about. He ends up getting hurt, and here comes a cart, and it was just a very bad situation for him. It was like the worst case scenario. So he gets on the cart, and I'm just like, fuck. Initially, I thought it was going to be, like I said in the vlog, I thought it was going to be just like a multi-week injury, but then it ends up being a season-ending injury because it ends up being a broken ankle. Very disheartening for a young guy. And what didn't help was the fact that most of his teammates, aside from Trent Williams and Fred Warner, initially didn't immediately rally around him. They didn't give him his support. They were more excited about the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo, their good guy, was coming in to fill in. He was gonna be their man for the rest of the season. Jimmy Garbage Fail was gonna save the day once again. So, man, what a disappointment that was at the time. And what a way to rally around your young quarterback that was still on a rookie contract and needed this season to truly develop. Now we have a lot of unanswered questions about how Trey Lance is going to do, and honestly, I still believe in the fact that Kyle Shanahan set him up to fail up to that point by purposely getting him hurt, running him into the ground like that, and it was only 2 weeks, by the way. Imagine if he did this by the first month of the season, so he can get his golden boy Jimmy G back in the fold. But the past is in the past. And still, a lot of questions remain on what the heck Trey Lance is going to look like in 2023. Who knows if he's going to look like the same quarterback like he was going to be in 2022, or he could be a little bit more balanced with running the football. Who knows? Hopefully, he's doing well in his recovery, and hopefully he'll be ready to play next year, whether it's Kyle Shanahan coaching or it's somebody else here on this 49ers team. So going back to this season for the 49ers, Jimmy G comes in, fills in for the rest of that Seattle game. The Niners win easily 27-7. Obviously, the Seattle is a much different team now, but the 49ers, during that time, when they got Jimmy G back, they were like, the fan base was like, oh, Jimmy G, yes, He's back to save our season. Oh, golden boy, Jimmy G. Oh, yes. Oh, we're just salivating the moment. Oh, the Jimmy G fan base, the lovers, were basking in the glory of getting their guy. The guy with the winning record, even though for much of that winning record, it was the defense. It was the running game. It was luck that got him that. And sure, Jimmy G had his moments, but most of it was his supporting cast that helped him out. So, anyway, when it comes to Jimmy G, he helps the Niners win that game. And then the week after in Denver, he completely flops. And yeah, we all know what happened in that game in Denver. We all know when he Dan Orlovsky'd his way to a safety in that game. So he completely flopped. After that opening drive. So don't give me the excuse of, oh, he had no offseason. He had no training camp. He was expected to get released, and he didn't. Because, I don't fly with that excuse at the time. Because he's been with the team for, 5.5 years? Because, he was traded midseason 2017. And neither his coach in Shanahan nor his philosophy changed one bit. It was still, let's work on his screen game, hand the ball off to the running back, and that's it. Nothing has changed with this team, aside from the players. That's it. And yes, he was coming off shoulder surgery, but still, that was the only thing that changed. Nothing else. Nothing about the playbook has changed for Jimmy Garoppolo. So I still don't want to hear those excuses whenever the Niners lose, man. So, it takes a little while for him to get his groove on. He does a little bit better against the Rams and the Panthers, where I said, Jimmy G had a much better game in Carolina. So, at the time, I thought, if Jimmy G continues to do this well, then, maybe they can sweep the East Coast series with the Panthers and the Falcons. But then he flops against the Falcons. And then when they come back home, they get destroyed by the Chiefs. And this has always been the problem with Jimmy G. Not just Jimmy G, but Kyle Shanahan as well. They're so inconsistent. And I'll get to Kyle Shanahan later, but Jimmy G has been so inconsistent. Like, he has done so well at times, but then for most of the time that he either plays like he's scared, like Mac Jones, or he's like a erratic Zach Wilson that just he just does okay or good that one game. So which one should he be? Like, should he be like a good version of somebody else? I don't know. So either way, he did have his best game against so far against the Rams, where he looked like his 2017 self, that took risks, got out of the pocket often, threw more than 15 yards. He threw the long bomb to Ross Dwelly. Like, man, can we get, if we're not gonna have Trey Lance at all this season anymore, can we at least get that Jimmy G in some consistent manner? That one that gets out of the pocket more, throws more than 10 to 15 yards. I mean, it'll make our stress levels for real Niners fans like me, like filthy casual fans like me that are just honest about this team. It'll make our stress levels ease down a bit. No? Is it that hard? So anyway, speaking of Kyle Shanahan, going back to this mid-season review. Let's talk about Kyle Shanahan now. I've been very hard on Kyle Shanahan this whole season because, well, like with Jimmy G, he's very inconsistent. 1 week he has a really good game plan where he has his team rolling against teams like the Rams, the Panthers. He has his offense scheming around his best skill players like Christian McCaffrey and playing up to his player strengths in Jimmy G or George Kittle, whatnot. But then there are other weeks where, like against the Falcons or the Chiefs, where he's just like they don't come prepared to play. Like let's just rely heavily on the run game, and when that doesn't work, let's try the passing game. When that doesn't work, it's just like, well, shit, what do I do? What do I do now? And it's just like, is Kyle Shanahan like really this offensive guru that we really come to be? Is he really this inconsistent? So I know I've had my like glimpses, my flickers in the lights of, oh, they need to fire Kyle Shanahan. And, that could still be the case by season's end. But who knows what Jed York will do if the Niners like don't make the playoffs or they get destroyed in the playoffs. Like I kept on predicting in last year's playoffs, and then they didn't. But who knows? Because whereas sometimes Kyle Shanahan can be good as a play caller, he is very wildly inconsistent. Like when it comes to preparing his players to play. So who knows? So a couple more things I want to talk about with this season review, mid-season review, is the injuries, man. I know it's not as crazy as, injury mania in 2020. Not a lot of season-ending injuries, at least for now. But of course, a lot of players that miss time, and who knows if they're fully healthy. So a lot of notable injuries that were season-ending, like obviously Trey Lance with the dislocated ankle. Of course, a big loss on the defense was cornerback Manuel Mosley with the torn ACL. Yeah, we love torn ACLs here on the 49ers, don't we? And then we lost defensive tackle Maurice Hurst not even in the season. We already lost him in preseason in training camp with the torn bicep. So yikes. And then of course we still have some players on injured reserve, like short-term injured reserve, like Javon Kinlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair. Kinlaw has a nagging knee injury, so man can't fight off the injury bug. And Azeez Al-Shaair has a high ankle sprain. Eric Armstead, I don't know what's going on with him. He still has a foot and ankle injury, and he's been missing since week 3. So I don't know exactly what's causing the delay in his recovery. So hopefully after the bye, he'll be back at some point. And then other players that missed some time was Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Daniel Brunskill, and Jimmy Ward. It's a good thing that they're back, but hopefully all of them can stay healthy throughout the rest of the way. And then, of course, with the injury, not the injury to Elijah Mitchell, but the trade of Jeff Wilson Jr. to the Dolphins, you better hope that Elijah Mitchell can stay healthy the rest of the way because, knock on wood, Christian McCaffrey goes down with injury. Elijah Mitchell better step up because that running back depth behind those two, it's pretty sus. It is pretty sus right there. Speaking of Christian McCaffrey, let's talk about that trade. Let's talk about that trade right there. Obviously, we know that the Niners made a massive trade to bring in McCaffrey from the Carolina Panthers as they undergo their rebuild down in Carolina in return for a bunch of their picks in next year's draft. Well, I still think that it's still a lot to give up for someone that hasn't been a priority need on the offense, but hell, it's been a payoff so far, despite a lot more pressing needs like offensive line, corner, defensive tackle. So, I mean, I'm not completely shitting on the move right now, as long as McCaffrey can stay healthy the rest of the season and the Niners can keep him healthy. Interchange him with Elijah Mitchell here now and then, just to prevent a significant injury. So as long as they can keep McCaffrey healthy, this trade will absolutely pay off. And this offense will look really dynamic and, hide Jimmy G's flaws in some shape or form. So I do have a couple of positives when it comes to this season. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is one of them, but there are some other undervalued, underrated ones. Obviously, we have Brandon Ayuk, who has been a star on this team. And had it not been for Trey Lance's injury in week 2, who knows what this dynamic duo would have been, because these two have been working in the offseason. And it looked like they were just starting to come along. And it would have been insane down the stretch by this point if Trey Lance was still here, working on his development throughout the season. And then guard Aaron Banks, he still hasn't given up a sack by this point in the season. His pass blocking has been really, really impressive by him. You haven't, like, aside from a couple penalties that he's given up, other than that, he's been really, really good in pass protection on the left side. So credit to him. And Charvarius Ward, I know he hasn't been healthy right now, but you have to give him credit. He's been a good payoff for the 49ers. And he's gotten a little bit burned at times, but in protection on the opposite end of Emmanuel Mosley until he got hurt, he's been a good pickup for the 49ers in this offseason, and what they absolutely needed in the secondary that was getting burnt like toast in 2021. So obviously, to end this midseason review, and to end this episode, we're gonna look at how the Niners are gonna fare after the bye week. So there's not gonna be a preview for their game until next week. So this episode is gonna supplement that, but we're gonna take a look on how they're gonna fare after their bye week. You know, they still have a couple games left to go. This is they're a very good point for them to have their bye week at the exact halfway point of the season. So when they come back from the bye, they have the the Clippers, the Chargers on Sunday Night Football in prime time. And it initially, it looked like it was going to be a harder matchup for them, but they're also dealing with injuries to J.C. Jackson, who's out for the season. Joey Bosa's still on IR, but he seems like he's progressing. But as of right now, we'll see if he's going to be practicing by next week. So until then, you don't have to worry about those two for now, especially J.C. Jackson, who's out for the season. But you still have to worry about Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams on offense. But they won't have Rashawn Slater for the season. For the rest of the season, they're star left tackle. So that's one point of area to attack. So that might be a winnable game as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot. You still have 2 games in the division against Arizona. One of them's in Mexico City the week after the Clippers game on Sunday night, and that's on the Monday night game. So one in week 11 and one in the season finale against Arizona. And then in week 12, you're playing the New Orleans Saints on a short week. They still have a solid defense, but I mean, their offense with Andy Dalton, even with Alvin Kamara, it's meh. It's not really that inspiring. So a pretty winnable game. Again, just don't fuck it up. And that's the beginning of a 3-game homestand. Your hardest game comes after with the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel returning to play against you with his dynamic offense with Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, Raheem Mostert, and Jeff Wilson Jr. Oof. Yeah, I think that's going to be your hardest one yet since the Chiefs. So good luck with that one. And then you got the Bucs to wrap up your 3-game homestand. And if the Bucs continue to struggle here, even with Tom Brady, this could be good pickings for the 49ers to spoil Brady's homecoming. So obviously your next biggest test comes in Seattle against the Seahawks, who obviously look much different than they were back in week 2. And it's only on Amazon Prime Video, by the way. So I mean, that's going to be accessible to some way or shape or form in the Bay Area somewhere. But still, it's still $15 on Amazon Prime Video. So anyway, on Christmas Eve, it's a commanding matchup for the 49ers against Washington. Who knows if Carson Wentz or Taylor Heinicke is going to be the quarterback by then. But what's Washington going to look like by Christmas Eve? Who knows? It might be an early Christmas present for the 49ers. Or they might just get coal in their stocking. And then New Year's Day, they get to spend it in Las Vegas against the Raiders. And like with the Commanders, what's Las Vegas going to look like? And yeah, they're currently a shit show with Josh McDaniels. And then obviously you have the season finale against Arizona and Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. So either way, the 49ers, in the second half of the season, they have to stay healthy. They have to prevent themselves from shooting themselves in the foot. They have to look good on offense, on defense, pretty much on all sides of the ball. Because this second half schedule, if these teams continue to play like shit, this schedule doesn't seem that bad. Their only hardest games of this in this stretch, as of right now, are Miami and Seattle. So, other than that, most of these games seem winnable. But hey, there's always the saying of any given Sunday, and we can't exactly crown the 49ers as Super Bowl contenders because, well, they're pretty flawed themselves. We don't know if you're always going to get that Jimmy G that we saw on Sunday against the Rams. But how? Like I said, time and time again, in the second half of the season, they can't let up. They must treat every game as a must-win if they want to win the NFC West from Seattle because that's pretty much all the NFC West is at this point. The Niners and the Seahawks. Because winning the NFC West, even this weak-ass NFC in the second half of the stretch, it may be their most likely shot at making the playoffs. Because as a 7 seed, would I really want to play the Vikings or Seattle in Seattle? I don't know about that. I'd rather have a home playoff game or two. So we'll see how this second half stretch goes for the 49ers. I can't really make a bold prediction on how many wins they get. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, they're currently on bye this week. They face the Chargers on Sunday Night Football when they come back. But who knows? I'm a little excited on how this can go, but I'm still cautiously realistic on how the second half stretch can go because they can either play good this second half or they can play a bunch of 49ers football on the other half. So anyway, let me know your thoughts on the 49ers at the midway point of their season and what are you impressed with? What are you not impressed with? Do you think that this 4-4 start to the season is decent? Do you think it could have gone different? Or do you think that this is just all a hoax? Do you think that they'll make the playoffs? Do you think that they'll not make the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts however you can, whether it's on YouTube or on social media on Twitter and Instagram. But anyway, this is DylanLasagna of Very Cold Lasagna signing out of the podcast for today. And again, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And rate this podcast, review it, share it with your friends, do whatever you can to spread the word of all the filthy casual takes inside that very cold lasagna. And until next time, peace out.